Okay, here's where we left off from our first part of our Chapter 4 chat. And this is a screenshot of the Purdue OWL site that you looked at for that activity, looking at those resources. And look how they describe the purpose of writing definitions. The primary reason to include definitions in your writing is to avoid misunderstanding with your audience. That's why they think students need to write definitions. Now, I want you to recall what Hillocks says at the end of Chapter 4 on the bottom of page 112. Hang on, I'll show you. Hillocks says, although most textbooks dealing with writing argument do not connect definition with the writing of arguments, definitions clearly provide the warrants and the backing for, oh my God, look at that. I don't know what I did there with my typing, for arguments of judgment and for many arguments of policy. I can't believe I have that typo in the middle there. How did I miss it? Anyway, the criteria developed in extended definitions are the warrants for arguments in nearly all fields of endeavor. So his point is that definition is a vital tool, whereas the Purdue OWL almost suggests that it's kind of an add-on, an adjunct, something that you really don't need the same way you need other patterns of development. And you might remember that I was talking about those essential patterns of development in class the other day in the St. Martin's Guide to Writing. That was what we talked about when I was a TA. And you'll see that the definition is pretty good of what a definition paper should be, and we always required students to write a definition paper. But somehow or other, the idea of the value of definition has become just something from the dictionary. And that is not going to be sufficient to do the kind of arguments of judgment that Hillocks is trying to get students to do so that we get them to think in more complicated and complex ways about the judgments that they have. So what I used to teach when I was a TA many, many years ago is the analytical or extended definition. And it had these 4 elements that were part of the writing that the students did. It had the word, whatever the word was we were defining. It had the class of the word, which is the sort of the larger category to which it belongs. It had some essential characteristics that defined or made up or characterized the word, and then it had some contrasting or distinguishing characteristics. And Hillocks spends quite a bit of time at the end of this chapter talking about that, especially in terms of the definition of terrorism. And that's an important activity because it gets students to see how we have to really define terms with specific criteria so then we can apply those definitions using that criteria. So here's an example. A Petrarchan sonnet is a poetic form that features an octave and a sestet and follows the rhyme scheme ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. It is different from a Shakespearean sonnet which features three quatrains and a closing couplet. So you'll see that we have the Petrarchan sonnet is a poetic form, right? So a poetic form is the class. The Petrarchan sonnet is a member of this class called a poetic form. Then I list the essential or appropriate criteria, and this is also called restricting criteria. So the criteria of a Petrarchan sonnet that is essential is an octave and a sestet that follows a particular rhyme scheme. So we've got the Petrarchan sonnet, the word, the class, or the class to which it belongs, the poetic form in green. Then we've got the essential or appropriate criteria, which is also called the restricting criteria, in red. And then we have it is different from a Shakespearean sonnet, which features 3 quatrains and a closing couplet. This is distinguishing or differentiating criteria. So it tells you how a Petrarchan sonnet is different from a Shakespearean sonnet. So those are the elements: the word, the class, the essential characteristics, and then the contrasting or distinguishing characteristics. when we have students write a definition paper, these are the elements they need to address. So I want you to do a definition. So here's a task for Tuesday. I want you to find a term related somehow to your individual This American Life chapter and frame an extended definition that includes all the elements we just reviewed. So for example, if you have the community group, well, you're going to have to define what a community is and to what class. I mean, what are we going to talk about in terms of what class, to what group does community belong? These are some of the things that you need to begin to practice so you can show your students their value. So I'd like you to type something up for me relevant on Tuesday. It doesn't have to be the value per se. It could be some aspect of your This American Life that needs definition. Okay? That's it. Just a short couple slides for the second part. Okay, there are no slides. Well, I don't know. I haven't decided. I've been working on something for the English language arts, the teaching, the grammar book, I mean. And if I have something, I'll drop you an email about that. Anyway, okay, have a good weekend, you guys. Bye.